Hello. All right. Welcome. Good morning. Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome to the weekly edition. Let me reset this a little bit. There we are. Welcome to my weekly episode of the Practical SQL Server HIPR show. My name is Mr. Manto, and welcome. If you have just joined in, I kind of do these every Friday 10 o'clock Eastern time, depending on where you are. So make sure that you do put it on your calendar, set some notifications up. But I talk about practical SQL Server HADR stuff. And I kind of prefixed the word practical there because there are certain cases where businesses specifically those who want to implement SQL Server high availability and disaster recovery solution would rather come up with the technology first, and then they go through this rigorous process of trying to plan and design. Next thing you know, the costs go up, and then they try to push the project longer because, well, it's not practical. I'm here to make it, I don't want to say easy because it's not really easy. It's challenging. It's a lot of work, but I'm here to make it simple and I'm here to make it practical. And I go outside of typical conventions of just focusing on the tech because for one, once you master the technology, everything else becomes even more challenging. The technology part is easy. As technology professionals, we do this day in and day out. So it's easier for us to kind of learn the technology, right? It's easy for us to navigate. However, the topic that I want to talk about today, and since we're talking about the technology, is how learning SQL Server always on can lead to your next promotion or your next salary increase or your next job opportunity. And you might be thinking, well, I'm just starting out. I'm a relatively new IT professional or a brand new DBA, or I'm an intern. I don't know exactly how this is going to work. Or you may be a DBA and you've been working with SQL Server for quite some time, let's say 5 to 10 years, but you've not had the opportunity to work with always on availability groups. Maybe you have not had a chance to be on a project, especially in large organizations where you have segregation of duties, and maybe you have not had yet the opportunity to work with or be assigned to a project or manage an environment that involves SQL Server always on availability groups. Or let's just say that you're you've been assigned an opportunity to work with or manage an always-on available groups, but you don't have any clue at all. It's challenging because when I was starting out, this was way back the good old days of Windows NT4. When I got introduced to Microsoft clustering services, it was challenging, to say the least, that in the first few, I think, years of Windows NT4, I decided I don't want to touch that ever again. And it becomes discouraging, to say the least, because for one, especially when you're trying to do this on your own, right? Let me paint a really good picture of this. A high availability solution is a very complex solution with a ton of moving parts. And because we technology professionals would like to figure things out on our own, especially the internet has made it easy for us to access any type of information, right? You do a quick Google search, you find what you're looking for using your favorite search engine, and it either leads you to a blog post, a Microsoft documentation, a YouTube video, a Udemy course, whatever information is available. But somewhere along the way, as you're trying to figure things out on your own, you're not making progress. And it can be discouraging because you are not making any progress. And the thing about this is, especially with new opportunities nowadays, working with SQL Server, especially if you're applying for newer jobs, the senior roles have specific requirements about knowing how to work with high availability technology, specifically always on. In fact, a lot of them would, I don't want to say misuse the word always on. In my case, I intentionally used always on to cover the larger bracket of SQL Server high availability solutions. But in order for you to land those jobs, in order for you to land those opportunities, you need to have specific skills. And one of the things that they specifically put in those job descriptions is high availability, specifically SQL Server always on technologies. But again, like I mentioned earlier, it can be very frustrating that you have not had exposure to the tech because you don't have opportunities at work. You don't have a project. And maybe you're working in a small environment where they don't even want to try ozone availability because, well, it's too expensive. More so, like I mentioned earlier, you may have been trying to figure things out on your own and you're not making any progress. You're trying all of these different information from different blog posts, but they're not clicking. One of my clients from a few months ago specifically mentioned that they tried it once. They've implemented it because it was recommended by a technology or one of their technical experts. They tried it. He worked with a team, and it's not just him. He worked with a team. They deployed it, tried, but then it failed miserably that they don't even want to try doing it again. And other than the fact that there's a ton of moving parts, other than the fact that it's so confusing, so complicated, or to a point where you fail miserably that you don't ever want to do it again, it can be discouraging to ever want to learn it. But if, and the biggest mistake I see a lot of people is, I'm not going to learn it until the opportunity comes. I'm not going to try and do it until I'm forced to do it. And that was me for the longest time. Like I said, starting out with Windows NT4, I tried not to, because back then it was very complicated. The hardware compatibility list is so confusing that I have to build your failover cluster nodes exactly the same with the exact same configurations, exact same hardware. It was very challenging. So I was trying to avoid failover clustering at all costs as much as I can, to a point where when I was an operational DBA, anything that requires working with failover clustering, if a ticket would come in, I would immediately pass it to one of my colleagues. Like, you go ahead and then deal with that. I don't even want to touch it. And I try to avoid it at all costs. But here's the truth. There's no escaping the fact that if you want to grow in your career, if you want to become better, you need to learn this technology, whether you like it or not. And a couple of years ago, um, uh, when data has started to grow exponentially all across different industries, there were three things that I was told to focus on. First one is performance tuning. And don't get me wrong, I do performance tuning, and a lot of the um, a lot of performance tuning experts out there will tell you, yeah, if you focus on performance tuning, you're never going to run out of the things to work on. You're I want to say it's job security. When you do performance tuning, you're never going to run out of things to work on because there's always going to be something to improve as far as query is concerned. So that's the first one. The second one is BI or analytics. Sure, data is going to be there. There's massive amounts of data, and you have to really focus on how to display the data, analyze the data, come up with insights based on the data. And the third one is security. And it's interesting because nobody talked about HANDR. And when I was making that decision for myself, I'm like, okay, do I do performance tuning? Do I do data and analytics? Do I do security? And I made a decision to pursue high availability, mainly because of these three things that I want to share with you: how to leverage skills, learning always on availability. And I'm not just talking about learning it. I'm also referring to mastering this, because learning it is one thing. Learning a specific technology is one thing, but knowing it inside and out, like the back of your hand, is what would allow you to get that next promotion, ask for that salary increase, or maybe land that ideal job that you've always wanted. When I first created my always on available, the Senior DBA's Ultimate Field Guide training program, I never imagined that the people who would go through the program would get promoted, would get opportunities for landing their ideal job. That was not my intent. It just happened to be a natural side effect. So if you got a pen and paper ready, take this down because it will change the way that you look at the technology by learning and mastering it. So the first reason why and how learning SQL Server Always On can land you or lead to your next promotion is that one, it will force you to grow. It will force you to grow. And here's the thing though, depending on how large or how small your organization is, in very large organizations, DBAs are siloed, meaning there's an operational DBA, there's a production DBA, there's development DBA, they're siloed. In smaller organizations, that guy happens to be the same guy doing everything. Unfortunately, that guy also happens to be the Active Directory guy, the guy that set up the printers, but they're not highly specialized. And I can understand when people say, look, this is what I do day in and day out. I look at queries, I analyze indexing opportunities to improve my my application performance. But that's the thing. That's all you do day in and day out, and you get so comfortable doing that to a point where you don't even want to explore stuff. This is also one of the reasons why a lot of people working on-premises stuff don't want to even explore cloud because, well, I'm so busy doing the day-to-day, I don't even want to look at that, or I don't even have the time to look at that. If you learn and master SQL Server Always On available use, excuse me, you are forced to grow because there are a lot of things that are affecting the availability of the databases that are not related to SQL Server. There's Active Directory and DNS, your failover clusters, rather you're always on available, you still rely on failover clusters. And despite the fact that SQL Server on Linux has been out there for quite a while, right? High availability for SQL Server databases still run, most of them still run on Windows Server failover clustering. And that depends so much on Active Directory and DNS. But wait a second, I'm a DBA. I have no clue about Active Directory and DNS. A very common thing that a lot of people who have taken my training program said, I know SQL Server, but I have no clue at all how Windows Server failover clustering works. And if you are managing an always on available, or if you decide to, I want to jump head on and take advantage of the learning opportunity, you will be forced to learn Windows Server failover clustering. So if you don't work with Windows Server failover clustering, you need to learn this because now your job depends on this. The availability of your databases depend on Windows Server failover clustering. That's one. You will be forced to learn Active Directory and DNS because failover clustering still depend highly on Active Directory and DNS. You will be forced to learn networking because your replicas will need to talk to each other using networking. Your failover cluster node will need to talk to each other via networking. And so this forces you to grow. If all you did as an operational person or as an operational DBA, for instance, if all you did was look at the daily backups, what are the jobs that failed, how do I fix that? You know, there is not an opportunity for you to start looking at stuff like, how is my Active Directory affecting the availability of my databases? Or if you're simply analyzing queries and you're improving query performance, you won't have time and opportunity to look at how are my databases affecting, or how is failover clustering affecting my databases. And again, this is one of the things that I've seen people experience, and I personally experienced myself, is that because there's just so many things to consider, it becomes um, it becomes prevented, or the word I'm looking for, it becomes challenging for people to even start doing it, despite the fact that they know their next opportunity requires learning always on availability, despite the fact that their next promotion relies on this skill, they don't want to do it because it's just overwhelming. And when you start reading the documentation, it becomes even more complicated, to say the least. So that's the first thing. It forces you to grow. And, you know, your next promotion is just on the other side of your growth. If you don't push yourself to grow, it becomes challenging. Even look or even chase that promotion because, well, I haven't had the opportunity to grow, right? Like I said, your next promotion, your next salary increase, or your next job opportunity is on the other side of growth. And learning this technology will force you to literally grow. So that's the first one. Learning this will force you to grow. Now, a lot of the SQL Server DBAs that I've worked with, or even sysadmins would say, wouldn't I be boxed into this? And because there's just so many things to consider, um, wouldn't I wouldn't I be forced to try and learn everything? The goal is not for you to master Active Directory. The goal is for you not to master DNS, although that's a good thing. Otherwise, or yes, the goal is for you to just understand and see what is impacting availability groups from the point of view of failover clustering, from the point of view of Active Directory and DNS and networking. The goal is not for you to replace your Active Directory guys, nor for you to replace your networking people. That is not the goal. Or your VM guys, if your availability group replicas are running on VM. That's not the goal. The goal is for you to really understand what is going on under the covers so that you can have that conversation with the different teams, which leads me to the next point. How learning and mastering SQL Server always on available groups can lead to your next promotion, because by doing so, you will begin to see and understand the other parts of the business. The databases are at the center of business operations, whether you like it or not. If an app doesn't work today, all you got to do is just replace the app, or if there's a bug, you just roll back the change. If you, let's say, if your developers rolled out a code update and it didn't work, all you have to do is revert that code back. If you lose the data of your business, you're gone. The business is gone. And whether people think about it or not, data is at the center of the whole business operations. Your ERP systems, your e-commerce systems, your line of business applications. Data is at the center of it. It's one of the reasons why people like us who take care of the data, we're never going to run out of work to do. Data will become even more important, especially for mission critical applications or for mission critical industries. And, the fact that you're already working on the database thing and stuff is already valuable. Unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of DBAs, a lot of data professionals don't see it that way. You are already working on the most important asset of the business. Now, if you're into data and analytics, you're only looking at data. If you're looking at performance tuning, you're only looking at the data. If you're looking at a security, well, there's other parts of that. But when you're looking at high availability, like an always on available solution, you will be forced to talk to, like I mentioned earlier, Active Directory guys, which means you now better understand Active Directory is affecting the entire business. If you have a sales team that are on the road, you will now start to understand how the work of the Active Directory will affect the salespeople. There's no denying the fact that your databases still need, or your application still need access to your database. So you will be spending time talking to your application developers. You will start to understand how the application works. Again, not that you want to learn how to write code, but you'll start to understand how the application works, how the data is passed on from the application to the data, and how that affects the business. You will start to see how the networking works. And the reality is, like I said, the data is at the center of everything, and it also helps you see the bigger picture. And I like bigger picture thinking mainly because in a lot of my consulting engagements, when the subject matter expert is only focused on one thing, the subject matter that he or she is responsible for, they kind of have this narrow-minded approach. And that's just a side effect of being a subject matter expert. They begin to just zoom in to either technology or the platform that they're looking at, that they tend to miss a lot of things that are outside of the scope of the technology they're working on. I'll give you a very simple example. Client application could not connect to the database. If I'm an application developer, I'll just look at, hey, maybe there's something wrong with SQL Server because my application cannot connect to it. And so they would push that back to the DBA. If I'm an application developer and my application could not connect, I might think, oh, it might be a bug, it might be a driver. And because they're so focused on the application that they're working on or the technology that they're working on, they don't get to see the bigger picture, right? And I've seen this so many different times when a project is rolled out. All they think about, subject matter experts within the company, all they think about is everything that has got to do with that technology. Whereas when you start to get exposed to all of this, and because learning always on available groups and mastering it requires that you talk to all of these people, communicate with them, you get a sense of how the whole business operation works. In fact, one of the things that I tell DBAs is that you are the perfect candidate to become a CIO. Because now you're seeing the possibility by being exposed to all of these things, right? Compare that with somebody who's only doing performance tuning. Compare that to somebody who's only doing data and analytics. You're now looking at both the infrastructure, the network, the application, in addition to the data layer. And that's why it gives you the possibility or the opportunity to start to think bigger, not just for yourself, but also for the business. A lot of times when a client or a customer would approach me about a specific challenge on their SQL Server always on infrastructure, I don't even ask about their always on available infrastructure. I ask things outside of it, because the reality is it is going to affect the application. It is going to affect the business operation. It is going to affect networking and all of these things in addition to the availability. And this is where they'll start to bring in operational folks. This is where they'll start to bring in team leads from different teams, because they can see the different aspects of their individual teams. And then they start to realize, oh, we're not just deploying an available group, we're actually affecting the entire organization. Again, you will begin to see and understand the whole business operations. It's a natural side effect of for one. Again, you'll be talking to the Windows guys, you'll be talking to the AD guys, you'll be talking to developers, you'll be talking to project managers. Despite the fact that we don't like talking to these people because we're introverted, but you will be forced to. Like I said, in point number one, you will be forced to grow, which leads to the third thing. When you learn and master SQL Server always on available groups, or always on in general, whether it's failover or clustered instances or available groups, you will develop leadership and communication skill. And this is huge because nobody if you're learning a new technology, or maybe you've gone to university and took computer engineering or computer science or even IT, nobody talks about leadership skills and communication skills while you're learning technology. And a lot a lot of the technical people that I've talked to push back on opportunities to lead because they probably don't have a really good experience with their manager. They'll tell you, "Oh, my project manager sucks," or "My team lead sucks," and this I'm trying to remember one of my very bad experiences from decades ago about a very bad manager. And that's one of the reasons why they don't want to become a manager. However, they want to be promoted. Unfortunately, promotion comes with leading and managing. And another pushback that I hear from technical people is that, wait, so if I become a manager, does that mean I don't have to do the technical work that I really want to do? Well, you can look at it two ways. One, you can look at it as I'm pretty sure Bill Gates no longer writes EV code, nor Mark Zuckerberg writes PHP code or whatever he wrote Facebook with. You can look at it that way, or you can also look at it as this is an opportunity for you to influence more people, make things happen. And I always tell people, leadership is not really a title. It's all about influence. And if the thing here is this, because you're deploying availability groups, because available groups depend so much on a lot of different things outside of SQL Server, you'll be forced to talk to your Active Directory guys. And if you don't know how to communicate with them, and if you don't know how to influence them, it will take longer for you to deploy an availability group if you're not in good terms with them. I'm pretty sure we all have this joke around, yeah, we hate the network guys and the sysadmins or the storage guys. But the reality is your job when you're deploying and you're managing an available solution depends so much on the people outside of the SQL Server DBA. So you will have to talk to the sysadmins, you'll have to talk to network guys. And a lot of, funny enough, part of the deployment process when I talk to DBAs is be nice to your sysadmins, be nice to AD guys, buy them a drink, say nice things to them. And this is not just for you to get the project moving along, it's also developing your leadership skills. If you can influence somebody to do something to both of your benefit, you've already improved your leadership skills. And this, like I said in the beginning, your promotion, your next job opportunities on the other side of growth. And it's easy to work on the technical aspects of a particular technology, like SQL Server always on, for instance. It is very easy to work on the technical aspects because number one, you don't have to talk to people. Just pass me that ticket, lay out the things that I need to do. I'll do it without talking to anybody. It is very easy because that's how we have been conditioned when you were learning when you were going through the initial training phase. It's always about let me get the job done. So it's easy to just do the work and not talk to people, not communicate with people. However, if you're stuck, and you will always be stuck, you will always be struggling with something. So you will have to reach out to people. You would have to communicate. And if you don't know how to communicate, and if you don't know how to lead people, you will be stuck. And like a lot of people who have reached out to me, they have been working with always on available for months, even years on end. And they're not making progress because, again, initially it failed and they don't want to do it again, or it is very difficult to do everything on their own, that it is taking them much longer and they don't want to ask for help because they think asking for help is a sign of weakness. If you develop your leadership and your communication skills, it will be easier for you to ask for help because now it's no longer about, hey, can you help me? But rather, hey, can we work together so we can accomplish this specific goal? And that's to deploy an available group. So man, there's so many cases that I've worked with in the past where it took weeks to deploy the failover cluster, not because they don't have the skills, not because they don't have the talent, not because they don't have the resources. In most cases, the hardware is already there. The infrastructure is already there. Everything that they need is already there. It's just that the back and forth between the DBAs, the admins, the Active Directory guys took long because there's so much confusion, and the communication process between those different teams become the contributor to why it took them like weeks to deploy something as simple as, I don't want to say it's simple, to deploy a failover cluster, much more when they were deploying a failover group. And this, like I said, you don't need a title, you don't need you don't need a fancy desk, nor do you need a level in your organizational hierarchy to lead people. All you need to do is be able to influence them. And if you can lead people, there is always an opportunity for somebody who can lead and influence people. In fact, in my line of work, even though I do a lot of consulting work, most of the time it's always about leading people to do something. I mean, I can do the work. I'm this is my area of expertise. I can do the work, but if I'm the only one doing the work, then I'm not multiplying myself. And so my goal has always been to influence and lead people to do the work so everybody benefits. And at the end of the day, of course, I don't want to be the one to manage and do the operational stuff. The team needs to have the ability to manage, monitor, and maintain the entire infrastructure. So they need to be ready for that. And I talked about these three things, and there's really so much more into this, but I want to focus on these three things where learning and mastering, the key there is really mastering. Mastering SQL Server Always On can lead to your next promotion because number one, it will force you to grow. There is no question about that. You'll be forced to do things outside of your comfort zone. You'll be forced to do things that you've never done before. Like if you've only focused on SQL Server in the past, you would have to work on, not necessarily touch Active Directory, but have to work with Active Directory folks, the networking folks, the failover testing folks, in addition to doing your work as a SQL Server DA. It will allow you to better see and understand how the entire business works, because now you have to talk to these people and you start to understand how their contribution, how their work impacts the entire business. In fact, as I said in the beginning, data professionals are the best candidates for the CIO role, Chief Information Officer. And the third one is that you will develop leadership and communication skills. And interestingly, like I said earlier, when I created my Always On Available the Senior DB Social LBI training program, I never imagined that people who would go through the training program would have opportunity for promotion, would land their ideal dream job. I never imagined that. All I envisioned was, this is something that a lot of people need. And so let me create something that's practical. Again, mentioning how I emphasize on being practical. And that's all I thought of in the beginning until people would come back to me and say, hey, I just landed this job and I've always wanted to work for this company. It's amazing how one person who took my training program a couple of years ago, we were introduced through a common friend. He was working as a support engineer for a federal government agency in the Washington, D.C. area in the United States. Went from somebody who's just doing day-to-day operations to becoming a consultant to now landing his dream job, all because of this. Now, of course, I don't want to say all because of this, but the skills that you learn along the way prepared the way for him to get that next promotion. And I tell this, and in the beginning, I talked about how it can be easily discouraging working with a very complicated technology like Always On Available groups. And that's one of the reasons why it is not for everybody. If you're happy with doing the day-to-day operation, if you're satisfied with where you are, then good. This is not for you. But if you want to grow, if you want to stretch yourself and do things outside of your comfort zone, if you want to develop your leadership skills and communication skills, then you are ready for that next promotion, for landing your ideal job, but comes with a cost. Like I said in the beginning, this is not for everybody. And what I find is that working with my customers and clients for the past decade, there are three things that I've noticed that people who have landed their dream job or got the promotion have these four traits. One, they are decisive. They made a decision that no matter what it takes, they are going to learn this thing. It doesn't matter if they don't have any opportunity right now. It doesn't matter if they're not given the responsibility to manage always on available groups right now. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they don't know anything about it. They are just going to make a decision. They're going to learn it. They're committed. They are going to do everything and whatever it takes in order for them to learn and master this, right? And they're coachable, meaning if they've done this thing on their own and it has not worked for them, they're more than willing to look for somebody who has done this a couple of times and follow everything that whoever that person is will tell them to do, right? And here's the thing, they invest in themselves. It's interesting how DBAs and sysadmins or anybody who's trying to learn this new technology will wait until their boss would pay for the training. And they would not even invest in themselves in order to learn this thing. They would wait until a project comes in before they ask for the training. People who have made it, meaning they've landed their dream jobs or gotten their next promotion, they took the responsibility, they took the initiative, they made a decision, they've committed, and they pursued this on their own without waiting for anybody else. They didn't wait for opportunities, they created opportunities for themselves. And if this is something that you really, really want, let's say, for instance, well, now you're in the line, you've tried all different options, and you still don't know how to build a failover cluster or configure an available group. Or you need to deploy this thing next month and you're on a very tight deadline. Let's have a conversation. Use that link on the screen, schedule a strategy session, and let's have that conversation. This would lead you to my online calendar where you can pick and choose a time that would work for you. A 45 minute to an hour worth of conversation where we walked through what are your challenges with learning SQL Server always on available groups. Are you going to need this immediately? And we will get together, talk about what your challenges are, what's working, what's not working, and we'll come up with a strategy on how you can learn SQL Server always on available groups and eventually master always on available groups from start to finish, that you can be ready for that next promotion, ready for that next job opportunity, and not have to wait until it is there. Like I said, a lot of people wait until the opportunity is there before they prepare, not realizing that you have to be prepared for the opportunity. That when the time comes, you don't need to be prepared because you're ready, right? Use that link on the screen, schedule a strategy session. Let's have that conversation. I can guarantee you that 45 minutes to an hour worth of conversation, the time that we're going to spend talking about your challenges would be more valuable than the past couple of months that you've tried to learn always on available on your own. Again, use that link, schedule a strategy session, and book a time that works for you. All right. That's about it for this week's Practical SQL Server HADR show. Tune in again the next week where I talk about a topic. It's a Friday, so make sure that you do enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you again next week. Bye.